So this is training on what is called Blackboard Ally. Now that Blackboard name obviously should be familiar to a lot of people who've worked in online learning or done remote classes. Blackboard is a platform or company that owns a learning management system, a platform for hosting classes that we've previously been on in some capacity. But Blackboard Ally is actually a tool that's not specifically related to their learning management system. It's something that plugs into multiple learning management systems, such as Desire to Learn or D2L, Brightspace, which is the platform that we use. It's a tool that has multiple functions. The primary function, I think, for instructors will be to show them the level of accessibility in the content that they have in their course. It checks the accessibility, it gives you a score, and it points out where problems are and what those problems are, and it can give you some guidance on how to solve those problems. It has other functions, however. Also, it will allow students to actually access alternative formats of certain types of content into other certain types of alternative formats. And we'll demonstrate that later on in the training. Basically, yeah, it seamlessly works with D2L Brightspace inside the class. Some aspects are visible to students, some aspects are not. That will only be visible to you. So we'll be demonstrating that as well. So what you'll notice in the course that I am showing you, that Ally is actually in the navigation bar. And this is only visible to the instructor in the course. If you don't see this in your own course, you're able to add it to your course, and this should be available for all summer classes in D2L. If you'd like it in an older class, you can talk to us in the online learning department. You can email dlhelp@pcc.edu, and we can theoretically add it to an older class as well. But it should be active for all summer courses in D2L. But if you need to add this to the navigation bar in order to access it, you would go to your course admin page, and then you would go to navigation and themes. And we actually have navigation bars that already have it in the title of it, which means that it's accessible through that. So there's a version that has online rooms. If you don't use online rooms, then you can just use the version without. Typically, I recommend the version with online rooms and Ally. Or if you need to make a custom navigation bar, you can always make a copy of this, and it will include Ally, online rooms, and everything else, and then you can customize it. But we're just going to go ahead and pretend like we've already done that step, and we have Ally in the navigation bar. So this is a class that's been configured specifically because it has some problems that we want to be able to explore with the tool. I didn't want to use a perfect class that has no problems. So we're going to go ahead and click on Ally. You'll notice it opens up in a new tab, so I can still go back to my class if I need to. And in Ally, you get this score over here in the top left-hand corner. It tells you, okay, this is 69%, which is not great in general. There's a lot of improvements that can be made for 69%. That's a failing grade in some programs to get 69%. So definitely some things that we can do to improve this. Personally, in my own class, I teach a web technologies class in the web development and design program that's eventually going away, unfortunately. My class is at a 92% right out of the box, which was really nice because I do a lot of online development in my class. I use some of the native tools inside D2L. So it's actually really good to have one that's this low so that we can explore some of these features. So it breaks down all your types of content, HTML files, Word documents, PDF documents, so on and so forth. And it'll give you a breakdown of all of that. So it gives you two different options here: content with the easiest issues to fix and low scoring content. Easiest issues to fix, obviously what we refer to as low hanging fruit. So we can go ahead and hit start, and that will actually point out what some of the problems are, some of the easiest things to fix. So for instance, this image, market for berries graph, if I click on it, it will tell me that the image is missing a description. So for accessibility purposes, if a student is using a screen reader, if they're low vision or if they're blind, or otherwise have another reason for using a screen reader, the screen reader is not going to be able to tell them anything about this image because there's no alternative text applied to it. So there's no indication as to what this image is. So you could resolve that by adding a description here. And it's going to obviously depend on what the image is. If the image has any kind of academic instructional value, you want to put in a description that will provide the person who is hearing this description via a screen reader the same amount of instructional value that a person would get from seeing it. So if it's an equation, you might need to write out the equation. If it's like a chart or a graph, you need to be able to describe thoroughly enough what the value of that is. So if it's a graph indicating that sales have gone up in the previous quarter, then you need to indicate that information. You can't just say it's a graph. You actually need to provide what data is actually being provided. So in this case, I am not an economics instructor, so I have no clue what this means. So I'm just going to call it a chart or something. I'm not an economics instructor. So there's also an option to indicate that an image is decorative. This should only be used in the scenario that there is no instructional value to the image whatsoever. So like if you like Victorian ornamentation to separate paragraphs in your content because that's just something you like, then that may be entirely decorative and there's no value in mentioning what it is. So you don't even have to actually use alternative text. You can just say the image is decorative and move on. So I'm going to add that, and it's like, okay, so you just resolved that problem, and you'll notice it goes away, and our score bumped up a little bit. The important thing to note about this tool is there may be some things that you don't end up fixing. There may be some things that are insurmountable issues to address. The reason my class is at 92% and I haven't improved it beyond that is I actually have a full textbook that is given away for free in my class. That is not the main textbook for the class. It's just like an additional resource, but it's full of publisher material, and it would take me a really long time to go through this like 200, 300 page textbooks fixing all the issues. It's a PDF document, and it's not essential to the course. It's just an additional resource. However, if I did have a student that needed an accommodation for that, I would go through that process. But there are maybe scenarios where you don't need to keep striving for that 100%. It's great to do that if you can, but don't be overwhelmed by the number. The real goal that we want to push for in online learning is just improving the score from whatever you start out with. So if you start with a 69, get it up to a 75, an 80, an 85, 90, as high as you can get without having to basically redesign your entire course. There is going to be a return on investment issue where if you could spend all of your time trying to get it up to 100%, but that may compromise the content that you're designing. So this will actually also mention down here all of the remaining issues. There are going to be some issues that you won't be able to resolve because you may not know how, and they may not be super important ones. In D2L at PCC, we have a template that we use on all of our courses, and you may be familiar with this template where we have CSS styling. So we've got this blue background, white text for a header 1, and a header 2 has this underline, and the header 3 is orange text. Not currently on this page though. That template content doesn't actually have all of the technically needed aspects. If you'll notice, and you don't have to worry about knowing what I'm talking about here, but we don't always declare the language, and so you'll see a warning about HTML pages not declaring the language. So this means the language is English. That is not present in every template. in every HTML file that we provide for you. And so you may see something in here. I'm not sure if we have it. I think this one actually doesn't have this issue, but others will report that the HTML doesn't have a language declared. But you'll see other things where document is untagged, document doesn't have any headings, stuff like that. So you're going to have some issues that you'll need to contact an ITS member for assistance with if you're not already familiar with uh, doing coding in HTML, because some of the things are not things that you can easily solve through the HTML editor that you normally use to create content. So you won't be able to come in here and go like, oh, I'll add a header here. And it's like, no, that's not going to solve the problem. You actually have to go into the code for some of these things. So like I said, don't get overwhelmed by things you don't understand. If you would like assistance in fixing issues here, definitely ask to meet with an ITS member, an instructional technology specialist such as myself or Casey, although she is currently out. Melanie is here. So she's another option, and our other coworker, Andre Temkin, is available. So you can always contact us if you need guidance in correcting a lot of these issues that you will see. So this is only the Allied dashboard itself, where you're seeing your numbers, you're seeing some options for fixing things, but there's actually more to it than just that, just clicking on this. So what you'll notice when you go to content, as an instructor, you will see these icons. So a whole column of these types of icons that will indicate to you the score. So this is high accessibility score. This is a perfect score. I think there are some PDFs that have some problems that will have, yeah, see, we have terrible score, low score here. This one's pretty decent, but these are terrible ones. Students will not see these icons, so you don't have to worry about students being aware of issues with your documents. But it does give you an idea of, oh, hey, I need to improve that because I have a low scoring one. I have a medium scoring PowerPoint presentation here. I'll actually impersonate a student to show you what the student perspective is, just to give you that experience. So you'll notice you do have these icons, but you don't have that that score meter icon. But what you are seeing is this icon, which students will see and you will see. And this is actually an option for viewing an alternative format for the type of content. So this is a web page. So it's going to be contextual. So when I click on this, it's going to give me options based on this being a web page. The options may differ for a PDF, a Word document, or a PowerPoint, because there are certain scenarios where it wouldn't be able to be converted to a certain alternative format. So for a web page, if I click on this, it's going to give me some options. It's going to allow me to download that web page as an EPUB, which is for like an ebook format for iPads and other ebook readers. Electronic Braille, so if somebody has an electronic Braille display, then it can convert that for them. You can even do an audio transcript, so it will be basically text-to-speech recording in an MP3. And then you have a Beeline reader, which enhances it for faster on-screen reading. The important thing to note about alternative formats is generally the alternative formats that are produced by this tool are going to be dependent, like the quality of them is going to be dependent on the quality of the original documentation. So this is why, as an instructor, you want to improve your content if you can before the class runs, so that the quality of the alternative formats is better than it otherwise would be. So a PDF document, when I click on this option, oops, I clicked on the wrong one. When I click on alternative formats, it gives me some of these options. The problem is if the PDF has some errors with formatting, for instance, the audio version may not be reading it in the right order, or a Word document, for instance, might have the same problem. So there are going to be some essential problems that alternative formats don't address. So you don't want to rely on alternative formats as just like, oh, I'll just throw anything in there and the alternative formats will take care of it. Those will have quality issues if the original documents that they're based on will have quality issues. So just to go over generally what types of files can be checked by Ally inside D2L Brightspace. You have PDF documents, you have Word documents from Microsoft Word, you have Microsoft PowerPoint files, OpenOffice and LibreOffice files. So if you use open source Office files, then you would be able to check those as well, although that's very uncommon in my experience. We have a question from Jacob. Does the audio retain chapter section structure if it's marked in the PDF? I believe theoretically it does, but that might be something you want to test. So Google Slides, it will work with Google Slides, but not natively with Google Slides, which is to say, for Google Slides, you can export as a PowerPoint presentation, so it will actually be a PowerPoint presentation. Google Slides themselves are natively only within the Google Slides application inside Google Drive, and Ally is inside D2L. So in order to have Google Slides inside D2L, you'd have to convert it to a PowerPoint presentation, and then that would apply. Otherwise, if it's like a link to Google Slides, then it's not going to, because that would be external to D2L. HTML files are able to be checked by Ally. That being said, if you're not already aware, there is an accessibility checker within the HTML editor that is not a part of Ally. This is a part of D2L itself. But if you come down here, you'll see the check accessibility button. And so this is a native part of D2L that has nothing to do with Ally. And I recommend using this when you're creating HTML files in D2L, because it will give you a report of issues and allow you to resolve them, similar to what the Blackboard Ally tool does. And generally for HTML files inside D2L, that is the preferred course of action. So if you have a web page that has issues inside D2L, that is the preferred method, rather than using the tool here to fix it. So other file types, it will look at image files, so JPEGs, GIFs, which is, by the way, the proper pronunciation of GIF, PNGs, bitmap files, TIFFs, some of the more obscure image files that people don't use. Usually it's a JPEG or a PNG these days. So it'll check those to see if they have alternative text on them. Discussion topics. So if you're using the discussion tool, it will check your discussion topics. It will check web links. It will check your modules. So your modules here in the content area, it will check the quiz description field. So if you link files or content in your quiz descriptions, then it will check that as well.
Michael, I just want to mention about the Google Apps. You can add an add-ons to the Google Apps like Google Docs, Sheets, Slides. There's a Greco for accessibility checker that you can add as an add-on.
Okay, that's
and
really
that's
cool.
the information in there. So.
Awesome. So yeah, check the chat if you want to see a link to that. So there are some caveats to mention. So for instance, if you password protect content, then the Blackboard Ally tool will give it a 0% accessibility score. That will tell you how to remove the password, because it's not able to read that, and it's not able to generate an alternative format for password protected content. So it's not a common issue, but it's just something to mention if you do happen to include any content that is password protected. So that is pretty much a general overview of the entire tool itself. What I want to emphasize is, again, that this is not a tool that you should be a perfectionist with. Don't get overwhelmed trying to get that 100%. If you want to, that's great. But there are going to be scenarios where it's perfectly reasonable not to have 100%. But if you do want assistance getting your score raised, then I definitely recommend contacting an instructional technology specialist. You can contact the faculty help desk. So that phone number is 971-722-8227. Or you can email dlhelp@pcc.edu. And you can schedule appointments with us, and we can go over the content with you, go over the tool, and yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I need to show you aside from the Blackboard Ally page, which I actually don't know where we've hidden it. I think it's under Instructional Tools. I'm right. Okay, yeah. So the easiest way to get to the instructional support page is pcc.edu/is as an instructional support. And that will take you to the general page where you can go to Instructional Tools and click on Ally. So this is going to give you a better overview of some of the details where you can see your instructor reports information. It'll link to some of the documentation that we have, such as instructing you how to put it in your navigation bar. And you can go through any of this material if you want additional information outside of contacting an instructional technology specialist. So let's see, Jesse is asking if we have time to go over some common problems or fixes with PDFs. So we can, so we can certainly take a look at some PDFs and see what some of the problems are. So if I click on this low score, it's going to say, okay, this is terrible. It is contains images that are missing a description, and I don't know how to do that. So I'm going to click how to add descriptions, and it says find the original document and add a description. So what this is referring to, and this is a very important point to make, if you make PDFs out of Word documents, you need to maintain that original Word document that you use as a source, because some of the editing that you need to do to fix it is done in the Word doc rather than in the PDF. So that's actually an excellent example of a problem. I'm going to pull up all the issues. So let's see. Images are missing a description. PDF does not have headings. PDF does not have a title. Contains text with insufficient contrast. So let me look at that. So it's saying, oh yeah, we've got this ugly green text. And when I click how to fix the contrast, it's probably going to tell me to edit the original Word file. Yes, find the original document. So that is, going to be probably a recurring theme with a lot of PDF documents. If you're making a PDF from another document, then you may have to go back to that original source document and make it more accessible. It's not necessarily the thing that every instructor wants to hear, but generally, in my experience and in my recommendation, for online classes, it's much more preferable to have a web page over a Word document or a PDF. It's going to be more mobile friendly. It's going to be more web friendly. It's editable within the browser, so you don't have to go back to the source document. I can just come in here and hit edit HTML, and it makes it so much easier to update and to maintain as a file. That being said, there are a lot of instructors who really like to keep like a Word document and make a PDF out of it and upload that as their syllabus, but that will create some accessibility issues, unfortunately. Let's see if we can find something that has a different issue. Yeah, a lot of it seems to be pretty much the same issues, is that it's untagged, it doesn't have the language set. So this is all sort of metadata on the document that can cause problems. If I try this, it's going to say, go find the original document. So yeah, so once again, that seems to be the common refrain is you have to fix the original document. For a Word document, let's find one that has a poor rating. So let's see, documents contain tables with missing headers. Okay, so it's saying locate or download the original document. So in this case, you could actually download this and edit it if you wanted to, because you have headers that are not labeled, or the fields here at the top are not labeled in the metadata. So if a person is using a screen reader, it's not going to be able to tell if this is the header data. So that would be an issue. Yeah, we have insufficient contrast again. And once again, it's asking me to download the original. So yeah, that's not going to be as useful as if I had made them into a web page, because you can edit these here rather than having to download them or go back to the original source file. Let's take a look at a PowerPoint presentation. I wonder if it's going to tell me the same thing. Yep, open the original document. So if you have anything in a PowerPoint presentation, you'll most likely have to go back to the original source or re-download it and make edits and then re-upload it, which can be a hassle. Yeah, and that pretty much covers everything that I needed to do. It just really emphasizes the value of the HTML pages, the web pages that are native inside D2L. I don't believe comments in the discussion area of D2L. Are they automatically accessible? They should be, yeah. As a platform, D2L attempts to make as much native content accessible. So the discussion area should be readable to a screen reader. We have people who test those things, and I have not heard any complaints about the discussions. All right.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So if there aren't any remaining questions, I will go ahead and stop the recording, and we can end there.